New Zealand is one of the fortunate countries in the world that has many rivers and lakes throughout it. These rivers and lakes can be dammed and a turbine can be set up in order to produce hydroelectric energy. This is how approximately 81,500 terajoules per year of New Zealand's electricity is produced. Other sources of electricity in New Zealand include renewable sources, such as wind farms and hydrothermal sources, but also unrenewable sources, like the burning of fossil fuels, like coal and oil. The latter form of energy production made up 23% of New Zealand's electricity production as of 2012. This is going to have to change if we are to reach the New Zealand government's target of producing 90% of our national energy from renewable sources by 2025. In 2007, 13% of New Zealand's national energy consumption was due to the use in households, costing each household an average of $1,960 per year. This cannot be avoided in most cases unless the owner of the house has a spare $10,000 to $17,000 for a set of solar panels. As seen on this graph from the Otago University Physics Department, 63% of the energy used in households is heat energy, which can be produced in many other ways by the occupant of the house in order to save money. One of the largest waste streams in New Zealand is organic waste, comprising 23% of all waste being sent to landfills. In private households, 40 to 50% of waste is organic waste, resulting in 400,000 to 430,000 tonnes of organic material being sent to landfills each year in New Zealand alone. In landfills, organic material is compressed and piled up, leaving very little space for oxygen to come through and aerate the material. This creates what is called anoxic conditions, which is perfect for the growth and reproduction of anaerobic microbes. These microbes conduct what is called anaerobic digestion, or without oxygen. Very simply put, this type of digestion takes much longer than aerobic digestion, which occurs in the presence of oxygen, and also produces methane gas. Methane gas is a 20 times more potent greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide, which means its release is contributing to global warming in a big way. If we could reduce our organic waste output to landfills, we could decrease the rate of global warming. An alternative way for disposal of organic waste is composting. It can be very easily put into practice by individual households in New Zealand. This allows every household in New Zealand to contribute to our environment's health. If it is done correctly, it can take only 18 days for a pile of organic material to decompose into a pile of nutrient-rich compost. This compost can then be used to nourish any plants that the composter may own, furthering the benefits of it. Breakdown occurs when microbes, like bacteria and fungi, live on the material and conduct what is called extracellular, or outside the cell, digestion. They then use this material in respiration. Respiration is the process of conversion of chemical potential energy into energy that an organism can use. It will produce the most beneficial products and the most heat energy in the shortest amount of time if aerobic respiration is conducted. Aerobic respiration requires oxygen and produces carbon dioxide and water as byproducts. Anaerobic respiration, on the other hand, which is conducted in anoxic conditions, without oxygen, produces less heat energy and the byproducts of carbon dioxide, water, and ethanol if conducted by fungi, or lactic acid if conducted by bacteria. These byproducts are unwanted as they can make the compost smell. This means that in order to receive the full benefit of composting, which is the best compost in the shortest amount of time, microbial aerobic respiration should be conducted. The ideal compost bin can be encouraged by creating the following conditions. Enough airflow. This will provide the oxygen that the microbes need to conduct aerobic respiration. It will also kill obligate anaerobic organisms, which are organisms that only conduct anaerobic respiration. The moisture levels are also important, and the compost bin should be like a wet sponge. If it is too wet or too dry, the microbes will die, and therefore no more composting can occur. The carbon to nitrogen ratio is also important. The optimum ratio at which the composting rate will be the greatest is 25 to 30 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen. This is because both of these elements are required for the growth and reproduction of bacteria and fungi. This ratio can be maintained through the use of a certain amount of different material. High in carbon material is generally brown, while high in nitrogen material is generally green. Best of all of this material can come straight from household leftovers, therefore incurring no additional cost for the compost owner. The pile size should be at least 1.5 meters high and about 1 meter in diameter. This will allow the insulation of heat and also enough material for the microbes to live on. The correct temperature is also important and should be maintained between 55 to 65 degrees Celsius, which is the optimum temperature for thermophilic or heat-loving microbes. At this temperature, composting will occur at the greatest rate, but unwanted organisms such as flies and weeds will also be killed. This temperature will look after itself as long as all of the other conditions are looked after. This is because heat energy is produced by microbial respiration. This means that there is no ongoing cost of heating the compost bin for the compost owner. As previously mentioned, during aerobic composting, the pile is around 55 to 65 degrees Celsius. Now, this energy can be captured through the use of a few different devices, such as a black pipe filled with water, or a copper wire painted black, because black is the best absorber of radiant heat energy. If the water approach were to be used, a solar-powered pump can be used to keep the water flowing in a continuous circuit, therefore incurring no additional cost to the compost owner. Now, these devices could conduct the heat energy from inside the compost bin to somewhere of use. For example, a room in a house, a greenhouse, or even a water cylinder. Using various calculations, I have estimated that a regular compost bin, if looked after correctly, with a diameter of 1 meter and a height of 1.5 meters, will have a power of 300 watts. This is enough to heat the air in a 20-meter cubed room by 10 degrees Celsius in 15 minutes, assuming no heat energy loss. If we were to upsize this project and do it on a community scale, the power could be increased to an even greater level. I've estimated that a communal compost bin, if looked after correctly, with a diameter of 2 meters and a height of 2 meters, will have a power of 1,000 watts. This is enough to heat the air in a 20-meter cubed room by 10 degrees Celsius in 4 minutes. The method of composting used would be a mixture of both batch and continuous composting. This means that some compost could remain to produce heat energy, while other compost, which is at other stages in decomposition, could be removed and used as fertilizer for plants. This will allow the compost bin to continuously produce heat energy while also producing usable compost. This project has various environmental, social, and economic benefits, which have both a positive impact on the individual and the nation as a whole. Environmental benefits. As previously mentioned, methane gas is produced as a result of organic waste being sent to landfills. The burning of fossil fuels in order to produce heat energy also produces greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide. If a large portion of Kiwi families were to implement a composting system in their households, we could significantly decrease the rate of global warming by decreasing the rate of greenhouse gas production. The compost produced can also be used to fertilize plants, furthering the benefits of it. Social benefits. Making a compost heap is one way that every person in New Zealand can contribute to our global and national environment's health. The bins are easy to set up, and it will take only a couple of weeks to get all the material that you need to get the pile up to temperature. Despite how complicated it may sound to get all the components correct, it takes only a minimal amount of effort to set up and look after the compost bin. It involves only turning it over every now and then, watering it once every day, and throwing your leftover scraps into it. Economic benefits. By harnessing heat energy, the owner of the compost bin can actually save money on heating. If the smaller 1 meter diameter bin were being utilised, you could actually save around $790 per year on heating. Now, as it will only cost around $350 to set up, the compost bin will more than pay itself off twice within the first year of running. You will also receive the benefit of free compost around every 18 days, which is valued at $6 for a 40-litre bag at the garden centre. If everyone in New Zealand with a bit of land could make a compost bin and harness the heat energy produced, we would be solving two big problems in one hit: renewable energy and global warming. This is a good national investment, working towards creating New Zealand and making it more environmentally friendly. This, in turn, is a step towards creating Sir Paul Callaghan's envisioned future for New Zealand, the most beautiful, stimulating, and exciting place in the world in which to live. Thank you.
Paul famously had no sense of smell. What would you do about that?
Sense of smell, right. The smell is only created by anaerobic composting, as I said earlier. The byproducts, ethanol and lactic acid, produced when you don't have enough airflow and when it's not warm enough, they are what make the compost smell. So if you've got enough material for your relatively small compost bin, then it actually doesn't smell because it's warm enough to kill all of the weeds and everything else, as well as not produce those smell-creating byproducts.
Smells. Smelly smells.
The smelly things.
$350, you reckon, including all the pipes you need?
Yes. So I had a look at this, and if you were using copper wire, that's what it's going to cost you. It's not too bad, but it's going to be cheaper if you have your black pipe and a solar-powered pump. The solar-powered pumps are actually quite cheap, cheaper than you'd think they'd be. I think I found one for about $150, which is pretty good for a pump. And the pipe, we actually got quite a bit of pipe for free at our home. There were some people who didn't want it. There's like a
yeah, that's what they all say. Fell off a truck, whatever. So you've actually made this at home?
Well, we've made the compost bin itself, but we haven't harnessed any heat energy produced by it.
Why not?
Why not? Because when we made the compost bin, it was quite a while ago, and that was what first stimulated the idea in me. I was turning over the compost bin, and I felt the heat. It just hit me in the face, and I'm like, why can't we do something with that heat, you know? So this is my idea. We haven't tried it again because we're sort of in the middle of renovating our house, so we don't really have enough space to put all this stuff.
No, I understand. If you take the heat from the compost and put it in the house, will the compost carry on composting?
Yes, it does actually, because what happens is it will go down to that 55 degrees Celsius margin. If it goes below that, the thermophilic bacteria and microbes will die, but you've got what are called mesophilic bacteria, which enjoy that lower temperature, and they will produce heat energy and get that compost bin back up to temperature, which is how the compost bin actually first gets up to that 55 degrees Celsius temperature. So then you end up with those mesophilic bacteria dying, the thermophilic bacteria thriving, and they're the ones when you get some really good hot composting going. You
had your picture of your compost water heater and you called it Gene Payne's compost water heater?
Yes, that was, there's this guy in England, Gene Payne, who has actually come up with this, this idea. I sort of made it myself, and then I looked up, I wonder if anyone's done this before. So Gene Payne has done it before, but he was the only one that I could find evidence that has actually implemented this in his own household. And it was just a simple compost bin with, you know, the black pipe inside it, water running through. But there has been a couple of instances of people doing this on a really big business scale where they've made a huge compost bin. But I just want to bring it down a little bit so that every single person in New Zealand can actually do this and make a difference.
Thank you.
That's all right.